Alright, now we have our sear assembly and trigger bar assembly for the Springfield XDS, and let's go ahead and get that apart. Again, the only tool we're going to use, 1/16 inch punch. Alright, super easy to get apart. I'm going to show you a couple tricks to get this apart. Right? There's no need to remove any of the pins right now. All we're going to do is I'm going to show you, I'm going to kind of push on that. Alright, when you put the grip safety in, you see how it rotates in there? By the way, that's actually the drop safety right there, that little ledge. When it's right before you're about to pull the trigger bar is in the forward position, and notice it doesn't touch that little angle area to push it down. When it's in there, that sear is high up in that sear housing, and it makes sure that that sear doesn't release off the striker. So if you drop the pistol, it can't go off because it physically will not go down until you pull the trigger and it hits that little angle right there, and notice that it goes straight down, and then that sear drops and it would release the striker. So we're going to use that to our advantage. Alright, the trigger bar, the crucifix area, rides up in the sear in here. It just slides in. So to get it out, what I'm going to do is push in the grip safety. Notice that arm goes up a little bit. With that arm going up, I'm going to push it forward. Not too much, but that at the same time, now it's kind of stuck right there in that position. I'm going to push the trigger bar out. All I did was pop it out. Alright? Alright, now we got our trigger and trigger bar, and what we're going to do is try to remove the two pins that hold it in place. Now if you're putting in a trigger kit, all you have to do is remove the bottom one that actually holds the trigger safety in place. Now here's where you got to be very careful. Don't elongate this hole, and I'll show you why, because you could actually get your trigger safety to stick in there. Normally Springfield Armory does not recommend that you do this, but for the video, let's go ahead and take it apart. Now, it doesn't matter which direction you do it. See how easy that kind of came out? We'll go ahead and there's our pin, and it's in there. Okay, now, before you release this, go ahead and touch on the back of it and hold that safety into place. And now the plastic safety comes out. And then right back here, you could see our spring. Just go ahead and touch it. Punch is kind of magnetized so it comes out. So now you got those three parts that were in the trigger. And basically you got, it fits right in there. Just like that. That pin goes in this hole, and the spring pushes down on the little nipple that's on the back of it, inside there. Let's go ahead and set those three parts aside, and let's go ahead and take our trigger bar apart. Since we're taking everything else off, let's go ahead and do it. To take the trigger bar off, it just freely kind of moves. Let's put our punch in there, and let's make sure we get it on the hole. Oh, it already fell out. Alright. Alright, now we got our trigger bar, and that pin goes through there, and it also goes through that top hole and kind of just holds it into place. And there you got the little crucifix area of the trigger bar, and that actually slides into the sear in here. It just rides up in here in this area. We'll come back to that in a second, and I'll show you a couple tricks. Let's set those pieces aside. Alright, now we have our sear housing. Let's go ahead and start to take this apart. I would recommend the first pin that I would use to get this guy apart is to go right back here, that little punch that's right there. Now, with the sear limp, you see how it's just moving in there? The back of the sear spring is kind of in here, and you'll notice it's not even putting pressure on it. So now I could just take a punch and kind of just wiggle that back and forth because there's really no pressure on it. Oh, now it's making me look. There we go. Maybe. I'm trying to do this. There we go. All right. So all you got to do is just push it in there. All right. I'm going to go ahead and let it go, and I'm going to show you that in the middle of this is a little detent. So once that sear spring is limp and is not really putting pressure on there, you just push that pin in and out from either direction, by the way. So let's go ahead and set that pin aside. Now watch this. That grip safety just comes right off, right? Let's set the grip safety aside. Now I've got all the parts right here together. All right, now watch this. The sear just comes right off. How about that? Now, the spring is attached on both ends. All right. Now, we'll go ahead and take our spring off. All right, our bottom spring. Let's show you that. All right, now, pay close attention. It's an angle type spring. You got a long arm and you got a short arm. It fits in the second hole, not the bottom one. Remember that big roll pin that was in the frame? That actually goes right there, that big roll pin that was in the frame to hold the sear into place, the whole sear housing. So now you got that little arm, and it fits in this little cutout right there, and you got the long arm. Now normally, the grip safety, it rubs on that grip safety to push it out. Notice how it'll want to do that. When we put it together, we'll use this to our advantage. All right, let's go ahead and just push this pin out from either direction. Now you got your spring and you got your pin. Now, here's a cool trick too. These two pins, they have the same detents on both area. Either hole they can go into. They could be removed from either direction and they could go back because they're the same part. Now, we don't have very much in there. All right, now here's a trick again. Okay, we got to remove that punch. But now I'm going to show you, if we were to push this, the reset in, it doesn't allow you to take it out, right? Well, how do you get that guy out? Well, what Springfield did, this is a two-piece pin that's all the way through here. And what I would recommend is take like a little flathead, little bitty screwdriver, right? Come right in there. And if you look real close, you'll see that there's silver and then it turns black. That's where the two-part pin comes apart. Now just slowly push. You don't want to mess up the spring. All right, let me get my other little flat piece. There we go. Come on. I promise you this is really easy normally when I don't have people watching. There we go. We're starting to get it. Yeah, it went back in. There it goes. Now, did you see how easy that was? It just happened. All right. What we did was put our little flathead in there, and we pushed down over and remove this pin. Now, if you look at this pin real close, there's a little flat area, and what I'm trying to do is capture that flat area and push it out of the assembly. All right. Now, let's go ahead and use our little flat piece of metal in here. We're going to go ahead and take the spring. And careful now because it'll probably go... Oh, it went flying. All right. See, there you go. How easy it is to lose it. Put your flathead piece in there. Compress the spring over. And then kind of push up and it'll want to go flying. All right. Now, this piece... You can't remove it from this direction. So what you got to do is kind of, it'll just fall out. But watch. You just take this piece in here, and it'll fall right out. All right. We went and found our spring again. That went flying off. Luckily, I have a pretty clean workshop, so we could actually find the piece if it goes flying. Now, here's a trick. You could actually use a bag, a big gallon-sized bag like this, and watch this. You could actually do all your work inside that bag, and if that piece were to go flying on you, it's captured inside the bag. And the bag kind of fills up the whole screen, but that's alright. Unfortunately, I don't have that luxury because we're trying to show you guys how to do it. Alright, now we're going to go ahead and put our sear assembly back together. We got all these parts in here that it kind of looks like a mess right now, but we got everything kind of oriented in the way that it'll go back in. A couple things that I want you to notice, though. First off, let's talk about the sear. The sear, when we're looking at it oriented in the sear housing, right, you'll notice that this side has that little cutout area in there, right? If we flip it over in the wrong direction, you'll notice that it's flat right there. So you're going to want to make sure that that flat area, with that little cutout right there, faces just like that inside that sear housing. And what that's doing is, remember our trigger bar, that little crucifix area that's right there? It actually slides right into the sear just like that. So it actually holds it. The second thing that I want you to notice is that this bottom spring, right? This spring is oriented, basically the tail end, you'll notice that it clamps up and over. So it's like in this direction, like my finger, and then it goes around the pin just like that, right? So that's the tail end. And then the end that's attached to the sear, on the bottom of the sear, it actually is attached just like this. And imagine that's the sear. So on the tail end, you're facing up. The bottom end, you're facing down. Basically, it's making the letter S. So remember the letter S when you put that back together, and that's the correct orientation on how to put that guy back together. Alright, let's go ahead and sit that aside for a second, and let's talk about the disconnector right here. You'll notice that one end of the disconnector has a little hole in it, and the other side has a little nipple. That little nipple faces out in that little square cutout area right there. Now you can't put it in from the outside because it won't fit. Now a lot of people have trouble with this because you can't exactly get your fingers in there, right? So I would really recommend getting a set of tweezers, and they will be your friend. Just kind of hold it just like that, and then what we're going to do is just slide it up in there and put it into place. I'm going to put my finger in there so it doesn't want to slide out. Now, when it's correct, you'll notice that there's that 45-degree angle. That 45-degree angle should be facing towards where the trigger bar is. Remember, there's a trigger bar goes in there, and it actually, the disconnector is what actually pushes that trigger bar down. Okay? We'll go ahead and hold it like that, and you see it doesn't really want to fall out. But you got to be careful because it will want to fall out. Now, I want you to pay attention right here, that little cutout, just right there in that area. That little cutout will help you. Basically, we're going to take our spring and put it right there. Alright, now hopefully I could get this on without looking too bad. Alright. What we got to do is compress that spring in this little gap area right here. So to do that, I'm going to kind of start right in this area. Alright, I'm trying to do this with the camera in the way and everything else. Alright, you take a little flathead. I've got a little metal ruler right here. What I'm going to do is just go ahead and capture it just like that. You see how that was? Alright, now kind of sit it in that gap and slowly squeeze that spring in there and use your finger to push it. All right, now I'm going to stop real quick because I could already see it's already crooked. All right, let's start all over. That's what you get when you try to do it in front of the camera for people. All right, I've got the spring captured again. I'm going to go ahead and kind of tilt the housing off to the side and put it in there. Squeeze that spring. Push it down and capture it on there. Now just see how I did that? Very, 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 very carefully. Takes skill. I'm just going to say I'm that good. All right, now you'll notice that spring is in there. Now watch this. Now this disconnector isn't going anywhere now. That spring isn't in there. Now you don't want to push it too much, but it's actually in there. Now we're going to go ahead and take our punch and kind of align it through and make sure that that spring is straight, because then we're going to take our pin. Now remember, our pin, it was in there, and when we held it, we put that little our little ruler, little flat edge in there to capture that little edge and push it out. So now what we're going to do is, on the top hole, mind you, right there on that spring, we're just going to sit the smaller end of the pin in first. All right, now watch this. It just slides right up in there. All right, now I'll take our punch and kind of just push it. See how it's slightly below the surface right there? That's perfect. So now this disconnector will not come out. Oh, well, it normally doesn't come out. There it goes. All right. As you can see, you don't want to keep messing with it. Once it's in there, it's in there. You know. But now this disconnector, now you always want to check this, that it works right there, that nothing's impeding it. So you want to take your little punch and just push on it, and make sure that nothing is blocking its movement. Okay? So we did that functions test. Let's push this pin back down. That pin is back down. That's perfect. All right, the next piece that we're going to go ahead and do, let's go ahead and remove kind of the tools out of our way. Let's go ahead and put the grip safety spring back in. Now remember, you had two pins. The two pins here, and both of them had a detent in the middle. Doesn't matter which one goes in first, right? But what does matter is the orientation of the spring. And what I would recommend is grab the longer portion of the spring, just like that, and twist it, and see how you got that little arm coming down right here? A little arm. Now remember, on our assembly, there's a little cutout right there. That little arm goes in that cutout. So we're going to go and grab it just like that. Put that arm in that cutout just like that. You see? And remember, we're going for the top hole, not the bottom hole. I'm going to go ahead and take our pin, one of the random pins. There we go. Look at that. And now the spring, it's limp right now, but that's good. We don't need that to have any tension. Okay. Now, we're going to go ahead and take our grip safety. Right now, here's a trick. A lot of people will want to put that sear in right now. Let's go ahead and set that sear aside. Set that sear aside for a second, and let's go ahead and get the rest of it put together. Now that grip safety rests right in there, in that hole. But now how do you get that spring that's right here, how do you get that in there? Watch this. Alright, here's the trick. Master Armor. Kind of take your grip safety and just notice how I just put it right up in there and just kind of rotated the grip safety into place. Right? Now I put the pin in there, and now let's try to look at that. So now we didn't even have to fight with that spring. Look at that. Isn't that cool? All right, now here's the thing though. Remember, we got to put the end of that sear spring on that detent in this on this pin right there. So what we're going to do, we captured it. The first goal was to make sure it works. Now we're going to take our punch, and you could go either direction. And what I'm going to do is, hopefully you could see this, use your punch to just buy you some room in there, right? It's just sticking out of the end. Now look at this. The grip safety still works, but now that pin is sticking out a little bit. And what that does, watch this. All right, now we're going to take our sear. Now, remember the flat side, We're not supposed to be looking at that. Let's rotate that over where we get that little area right there. Now watch this. We're going to hold it just like that. Just like this. And we're going to kind of, are you seeing how I'm dropping that right up in there? Now, this is where it's going to take some maneuvering. Alright, you kind of just drop it in there just like a little fish. Shake it around, and now it's in there. Now watch this. See that? We captured the spring. Now as it's in there, watch this. I'm just gonna, now I need to push that punch just a little bit more. Just gonna grab that spring. Now this is hard to do on the camera. Normally I would hold it upside down and that'd be it, but we have to see what we're doing. Alright, look at that. Now I'm going to bring it back up. You see how now that spring is right on that pin? And now push it all the way in. Now you want to make sure it's even on both sides. There we go. Make sure that pin rides right on that detent. And check this out. Your grip safety still works. And now, look at that. Your sear, do the grip safety, your sear is right up in there, just kind of dangling into place, just like that. How cool is that? Now watch this, right? Kind of use your punch to align it. Take our crucifix, kind of capture it, and now you gotta do your grip safety in, and now this is what makes it kind of hard, and kind of, I promise you. Alright, let me show you. Get that up in there. Get that up in there, right in that area. Now you take our crucifix portion. Bam! Look at that. Everything's working the same. Alright. And then that's how you get it together. Look at that. Now our whole sear housing is together and our triggers together. And that's how you get it together. Pretty awesome. Just by pulling that the trigger bar out, pop it out, and then you pop it back in the same way. Now, the first time you do it, you are going to have to finagle with it because, you know, I'll take it back out so you can see. Basically, you're having to get that crucifix area into the sear. At the same time, you're wanting to twist that sear up so you could get both parts of the arms in. But at the same time, see how it's above the disconnector? So you want to pull forward, and bam, you heard that little click. It goes right up in there. So that's actually how to get it together, and the tricks on how to get it together. So reverse all the parts back together in the pistol, and hopefully that helped you. If you take a look at our online step-by-step photography instructions, depending if you're a video learner or a picture learner, it gives you both worlds, so you're able to make sure that you actually understand how these pieces work together. You know, but thank you for watching.